popcorn. We are two niggas spoiling movies. Yeah. Brandon Collins, that's me, and Justin Brown for your movie needs. Medium popcorn. Woo! You haven't seen it, well, we're gonna spoil it. Spoil it in your face. That's your warning. So if you get pissed, it's all your fault. Woo-hoo. Woo-hoo. One, two, three. Should have dialed in to the morning sale. A boom, but, and I steal from black people. This is Brandon Collins.
Guys, this is Justin Brown.
And we are medium popcorn. White people. And we are reviewing Elvis, Baz Luhrmann's Elvis biopic, which actually is false advertising, if you ask me.
Go on.
Because this movie wasn't. It was weird because it was trying to have its cake and eat it too by being like, trying to be edgy and be like, hey, we're telling the perspective of the bad guy in the story. But it's highlighting things that Tom Hanks' character wouldn't know. The Colonel. But this is really about the Colonel.
Yeah, for the most part.
Literally looks like Colonel Sanders if he were played by Tom Hanks. It couldn't grow a beard. It was crazy.
I mean, the Colonel, if we're going to call a spade, the Colonel looks like he would be the type of man that would start a boy band somewhere in Florida under the guise that I'm going to fuck these young boys. Am I right or am I right?
Well, you were so right, bro. Like, there's moments in this movie where, I'm just looking around. I'm like, this nigga's sweaty. He's breathing heavy. And Elvis is like, that's the dude I'm gonna trust with everything. Like, he's literally wiping his head with like a napkin that's selling Elvis off so he can have all of his debts wiped. Like, he's just like, oh, my child, my boy.
He's like, Elvis, why don't you get on that stage, young boy? Make yourself a little music. Give him the shake your hips. And so we're going to pay Elvis in fried chicken, right?
Give me all the dollars. He don't need the dollars. He just need the protein.
If he's going to shake them hips, he's gonna need that protein. So give him just nothing but that fried chicken, that yard bird.
So here's the thing. I've had some discussions on Twitter and with other writers and stuff about this movie. Because the reason why I hit you up about doing Elvis was, hey, I want to see if they talk about the appropriation thing, because I know that's your big beef with Elvis, as you know, a lot of black folk have.
Yes.
And you were like, all right, let's do it. And so then I was talking to a few other people that are not black who, when I asked about the appropriation stuff, they're like, oh, they touch on it. And I'm like, do they? And they're like, yeah.
They don't.
And then you watch it and it's just like, oh no, they're just trying to say like he clearly was influenced because he appreciated all of these black artists that he had access to. And he was also an ally, but we're not going to actually talk about people calling him out and saying, hey, you stole this shit from.
See, guys, I know that like in the past you've heard me say things about Elvis, and he's like, "Fuck that dude." Mm-hmm. And my main reason is because Elvis is nothing but a glorified cover artist. There's literally scenes before Elvis was even Elvis where somebody was singing some of the songs that he's known for. And it's just like, oh, like that's where he got that song from. But they don't put it in the frame of what they did back at that time was they said, oh, this is, I'm going to call it spade. This is nigger music. And this nigger music, this is not bankable music. Mm-hmm. So let's take this nigger music and let's put a white face on it. And we're going to pass this as this white face's music.
Yeah, I think
but hold on. But then at the same time, you'd be like, well, that black person, at least they got to get their music out and they were paid for it. No, but they were paid pennies for that. Like if you go back to Chadwick's last role,
Really? Yeah.
yeah, Mama Rainey's Black Bottom, you like they said like, oh, I'll pay you a few $100s or not even that. Like, yeah, that's trash compared to what that white artist is gonna make off of that money.
Yeah.
And Elvis made an entire career off of taking black art and making huge amounts of money off of it. But then at the same time, he didn't not only just take their money, take their art. He sucked the soul out of blues, and they basically repackaged it. That's like, oh, he's the king of this. He's the king fucking cover artist. He didn't like. There's a lot of these songs, like look into his discography. There's a lot of his songs. He's literally just covers. Like what's the fucking from the song from the Righteous Brothers, Unchained Melody, right? Elvis has the version of it. And they say, well, the Righteous Brothers actually did that song first in the 50s, whatever. Elvis came out, in like, I think the sometime in the 60s version of it. He's like, well, it's not based off the Wright Brothers version. It's actually based on this guy's version, who I like. So I started singing it. And then, but there are people who be like, oh yeah, Elvis really fucking tore it. Like he wasn't even that great of a fucking artist. But also this movie just told me everything that I didn't know about Elvis. But also reaffirmed that Elvis was not interesting. And his career was unnecessary, and this movie was unnecessary. If we're gonna fucking write movies and produce movies about people in history that mean something, let's do people in history that actually did something, as opposed to just being somebody who was able to to finance off of other people's art because those people didn't have a voice at the time. That is not a hero.
And because,
so when people sorry, I'm going on my fucking I'm on my soapbox. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Because there is no scene where he clearly outlines like his influence of black, his influence of black music that he's put into what he does. Like they just have these scenes where it's implied, like it's up to you as the audience to assume because he's shopping at this black, store, he appreciated the style, not that he was copying the style. Or like, like he hangs out with BB King, his one black friend, like he's cool, right? And because when he goes back home to the poor white kids and they know he hangs out with niggas all day, they tease him and he doesn't say anything, but he's an ally. It's like all these things that it does kind of cover up whatever there might have actually been in regards to actual thoughts that he had on what he was doing. But yeah, I mean, they didn't even talk about the drug use, really. They like just show blurry images to like, indicate that he's starting to take all these pills and stuff. But they don't actually talk about like, because from my understanding, his last few years were not kind at all. Like just physically, like he was just fucked up.
He was a fucking mess. Did you? I mean, that last scene in the movie was literally his last performance.
His last performance, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like he couldn't stand up in that scene. Like in that performance, he actually couldn't stand up. He was physically so fucked up from like all the shit that he had done to his body that he couldn't stand. So that's why he was sitting down. It was like, oh, he's such a hero. He sang his heart out. It's like he had to sing his heart out because he was contracted to do that.
Yeah, he was broke as fuck.
Yeah.
Because he wouldn't let the bad people in. I mean, it was, you know what it was? It was like, I get what they were going for with Elvis, and I didn't hate the movie, but it made me just realize that this business is fucked. And that we keep seeing the same story kind of over and over with these artists are exploited by the people who are supposed to be watching out for their backs. And they die young or they die tragically. You know what I mean? Like it had me thinking about Amy Winehouse. Did you ever see that documentary about her?
No.
Yo, they essentially allude that like her dad and her husband or boyfriend or whatever the fuck, they were essentially like leeching off of her. The same way that his dad, Elvis's dad, was in this. And it's like, and then people are like, well, Why were they using drugs or doing all these things so much? It's like people don't understand when you lose trust of the people that are supposed to protect you and that you have like infinite love for, right? That really fucks with you as a person. Because
Yes.
you're like, if that's the person that's supposed to care about me the most,
I got nobody.
exactly. And it's like that loneliness compounded. I'm not saying that's why I do all my edibles, folks, but it does, it does help a little bit. But that's I understand that's why artists do that though. And people don't think enough about that. Like what kind of trauma or fucked up shit did this person go through where now they are dependent on this substance to get through you know what I mean? Like Michael Jackson. Obviously he did a lot of bad things. But like when you think about how much physical trauma he went through and the fact that we know his family pressured him to support Joe and shit like that financially, all that stuff. Imagine what that does to you.
Mm-hmm. Well,
like,
not even
y'all supposed to have my back.
And that's beyond the fact that Michael Jackson has been in the business since he was fucking 5 years old, or however old he was when they started him in there. Because, and now, mind you, that's when they kicked off. So they were out there doing this shit way before that. His father treated them like they were fucking just nothing but cash cows. Didn't treat them like actual children. They were a business fucking model for him. So it was like, yeah, people don't fucking like look at fucking Justin Bieber.
Yeah.
Right? Look at fucking Britney Spears. Look at fucking any of the number of black artists from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, fucking the rappers of yesterday and today who have these predatory contracts that people are just fucking them over with. See, like the one thing, so like this movie basically right up top is like, Elvis, he was one with the blacks. That's what they tried to do. That's what they tried to make it seem. Is like, oh, his daddy had a fucking
Dad left.
No. He got put in jail.
Oh yeah, for a bad check. Yeah,
he got put into a jail for a bad check, and apparently they had him in jail for a minute. And then like, because the worst thing you could do is not pay a debt. They had to basically move into a black neighborhood because that's how poor he was.
So you know what that looked like? When they showed like the little shack thing she was living in, it reminded me of like this is like the beginning of that complex at the very last episode of Breaking Bad. Remember when we see Skylar and the son and they're living in a trailer shit? Yeah, I was like, oh, this might be the same location, just like years in the past.
So like. So now they're living there, and then that's how he got to learn about the church, the Baptist churches and all that kind of stuff, and like that's where he caught wind of like this sound, and like he was a part of it. It's been a part of him since he was a kid, which I'm pretty sure that's not the case. But at the same time, the one thing I will say is this movie showed that Elvis got taken to the cleaners by the fucking industry, which the industry has done to black people since the fucking beginning. So if like, oh, you want to steal from niggas, they're going to treat you like a nigga. Because the FBI came at him for lewdness and shit like that because he was moving like a black person. Which, let me tell you right now, everybody's like, oh, look the way he moves. He moved like trash. If Elvis was on the dance floor in any black party, we laughed that motherfucker off the floor. But at that time in the 60s and the 50s, with the 50s and 40s into the fucking the 70s when he died, they ate that shit up and they thought it was fucking amazing because they ain't never seen a white boy move like that. But like you have him in the club watching Little Richard going out there fucking going in, and it's just him appropriating all of that fucking that black panache and then just trying to make it his own. And it comes as, do the wiggle your hips. Like, hey, get the fuck out of here. That's why I hate Elvis. And I hate that people idolize him for something that he did not do. He did shit. He did shit, but repackage our shit.
Justin Timberlake was watching this movie with his dick in his hand. Yes, take all their black nectar, gold talent.
but you know what though? At the same time, and you know, I'm not giving Justin Timberlake a pass, but Justin Timberlake can really fucking sing.
Yes. Well, he could. I don't know how that voice sounds these days.
Yeah, I mean, like Justin Timberlake, even though I hear he's a fucking asshole, you know, he's actually really talented.
Yeah. I can definitely see him being a complete jerk.
Yeah, people say that the best thing that ever happened to him was him marrying Jessica Biel because Jessica Biel's a fucking sweetheart. I met a woman who fucking ran into Jessica Biel walking her dogs, and like it like in the city. Now this is Jessica Biel, and she was just like, it's like I knew who she was, but you know I wasn't trying to be a fan about it. And she was like, she was so fucking nice. It's like I sat and talked to Jessica Biel for like a half an hour on the street. You know, it's just like a happenstance. Thing was like she was like really sweet, really nice, and I saw her like once or twice after that, and she remembered me and had a conversation. Like she's like a really down to earth person. It's like, and she was like, I've like from what I hear is that Jessica Biel is like is kind of like Justin Timberlake's beard of being an asshole. You know what I'm saying? It's like she's so nice that it fucking evens his bullshit out.
Mm. Yeah, it's like Justin Red Lobster, stop dancing.
If I wrote you a symphony.
I'll tap into black waiters and say, hey, look at this. So okay.
I don't know.
So this movie,
I'm just going off.
This movie does feel like a montage of scenes. It's not a, and Baz Luhrmann, you know, he is visually non-linear, but at the same time, like I don't know much about Elvis. Like you clearly know a lot more about Elvis than I do, and maybe the average person. But if you went into this movie with not much knowledge about Elvis, you wouldn't really leave with much knowledge about Elvis.
Yeah. What did you learn?
You got fought by the Colonel, who it's so. And this is the thing, going back to that familial trust thing, it's so fucked that this dude either had him in a terrible contract, predatory contract, which is similar to, you know, you made a reference earlier in this movie about Tom Hanks looking like someone who makes boy bands down in Florida. That's what Lou Pearlman did.
Mm-hmm.
Boy bands and stuff like that. It's like,
and so those are predatory contracts. American Idol, guess the story. Predatory contracts. So is fucking America Got Talent. You don't want to go on those shows. If you're an artist, is like, yes, that show is great to get your face out there, but it's terrible because the contract they put you in there, you ain't making shit.
And they working you hard, man.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing, is like the Colonel was making mad money and then also keeping a tab on all expenses in case the day came where Elvis is like, hey, your cut's way too fucking big for doing what you do, which whatever that is.
Nigga, he was getting 50%.
On top 50%. Of any whatever additional fees or arrangements he made. Because remember at that casino when they were like, if you keep him here, we'll, you know, definitely pay the was it like a million a year or something like that?
Yeah, it was a 5-year contract for $5 million.
Yeah.
But then then basically he had a fucking they wiped away any of his debt and he had an unlimited credit line.
Yeah, because he was like, and now that's what, you know, Elvis expects. Now where would you pay me? And then you know he manipulates Elvis, because I remember when Elvis started the Vegas show, I'm like, isn't he the beginning of these residencies that happen in Vegas? And like in my head, I was thinking, like, isn't that the beginning? Because I remember my nana, from what I did know about Elvis, telling me about how he was essentially a slave to perform at these hotel shows, and he was incredibly depressed, and so he gained a lot of weight. And then she essentially said he ate his fat ass to death.
Yeah.
She's like, I remember vividly my nana telling me that he died on the toilet.
Yeah, it's funny because I always had a picture. I always had a thing that he died in Vegas, you know, in a casino, you know, on the toilet. But they say he died at Graceland, so he died in his estate, the one that he bought at the beginning of the film. But I think that he did die. He was found just like you know, hovering on a toilet.
It's terrible.
He had a heart attack in the bathroom, and it's just like he was on the toilet and fucking had a heart attack and died.
Life is tragic, man.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? Let me. I think I do need to be. I need to walk back a little bit of the hate because, like, listen, being fucked over, the way that he was, like that shit ain't fucking cool, and nobody deserves that, regardless of like how they got their fucking how they made their riches.
I mean, when the colonel tells him, like, he's like, when he tells him, like, your dad been taking money from you for years. He ain't managing shit except his own pockets. I was like, and you see Austin Butler, like, the kid can act. The kid did a good job for what he was given.
Yes.
Because in that scene, I was like, yo, that's such a fucking, like, because it's like, what do I do? Like, I cut everyone out, and then I'm even more alone than being alone, but at least having some people around me.
Yeah.
That's how much we as people would just want companionship and want people.
Hold on. 1 second. According to eyewitness accounts, Elvis looked as if his entire body had completely frozen in a seated position while using the toilet, and then he had fallen forward in that fixed position directly in front of it. It was clear that from the time whatever hit him to the moment he had landed on the floor, Elvis hadn't moved. Attempts to revive him failed. He was pronounced dead at Baptist Memorial Hospital at 3:30 p.m. He was 42 years old. So yes, he was on the toilet, I guess, when he had the heart attack. Probably he was there for a while. Rigor mortis had already set in, and then eventually he fell over.
Yeah, and make life less tragic, Justin. Thank you.
What's that?
I mean, just reiterate that life is tragic.
No. But I'm just saying because we are talking about, I heard he died on the toilet. He actually did. Like, that is true.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about Tom Hanks, who is before we start this part of the discussion. I think he's a fantastic actor. I think he's probably one of the great.
Yeah, he is.
Having said that, this performance was cuckoo fucking bananas.
Yes, it was.
It's it's the craziest thing I've seen him do besides the Polar Express, because he was just fucking creepy looking in that one. But this is the wildest thing I've ever seen him do. When he's old and they're having he's telling the story through the casino visions and shit. I was like,
yeah,
bro, they got you looking like Mugatu in some of these.
He's on this fucking jazzy. He's like, that's right. They say I took Elvis for everything he had. Little do they know I made him. I'm like, what?
And it's just this creepy old dude like following him to a fucking circus mirror thing. He's like, you want to know how to get out? I'm like, he gonna fuck you, kid. He's gonna fuck you.
Figuratively and fucking literally. Watch out for that man. So one of the things that so they said that, Elvis's manager, he essentially he just basically used his riches to basically just sit in that he just was scooting around that fucking casino and just dropping his riches into those fucking machines. He just became a typical old person. So basically he made a deal to fucking keep Elvis there, to keep his nest egg continuing to go, so he could retire in a casino. And
yep.
it sounds about right.
Mm-hmm. And he knew how to manipulate Elvis throughout the whole time, because there were so many times when Elvis tried to fire him. And then he'd be like, oh, I had a heart attack. Or, oh, what if I could get you a show and you don't pay anything? Which is like, Tom Hanks, you're fucking nuts. He's like, I saw the way that she looked at him that night when he realized they all love him and they would devour him. So love is short. It's like, this is the craziest narration ever.
Okay. So before we get to that, can we just say that this movie made it seem like the white woman is the most fragile creature on the face of the earth? A skinny white kid shimmying his hips was all they needed to fucking lose their fucking religion.
And come in their pants.
Like, they were just like, I'm just like, really? Really?
Yeah. I will say, like, the way that the women were losing their minds, and it's possible it really happened, but it made it seem like you could fucking slide around like you're on roller skates through the wetness that would be on the ground from all that moaning. You know what I mean?
Well, you know what though?
It seemed like everybody was orgasm. Just come everywhere. Just slip and slide and come after the Elvis.
Yeah. You know, like I do think that, like, well, obviously this was kind of a real thing because, like, you know, Bobby Brown was also somebody who they tried to lock up for obscenity on stage. He was arrested for obscenities on stage, for hip thrusting and shit like that, which just shows how fucking
do, me and you
together, yeah. No, so it just shows. So, like, obviously, this country was found on religious oppression, and like a lot of the Puritan kind of vibe is like deep seated in this country. So, like, we are a nation of motherfuckers holding their pearls, right? And like, and I would say that America may actually be outside of some of the, you know, the countries in like the Middle East, which are, you know, the Muslim faith, that we are one of the most extreme conservative Christian countries on the face of the earth. Just like as a whole, America is extremely conservative in comparison to Europe and everything. But like, to think that Elvis's career spanned over, let's see, when he hit the streets in 53, right? So years active 53 to 77.
Yeah, I couldn't keep up with like the transitions in time. There's
it
one
was weird.
like 1 year later, I'm like, I don't even know where we are. Like,
yeah.
It covers a lot of his career.
Yeah. Well, no, it covers his entire career. But, you know, if you think about it, his career was only 24 years. I mean, for somebody who is lauded as, you know, a pioneer, it's like that's not really a lot of time.
No.
And then also, just the fact is that, you know, he spent 2 years in the U.S. Army, you know, which he wasn't really doing anything, but, you know, whatever. He had 2 years in the Army. I believe that's during the Korean War. Yeah, that had to be during the Korean War. But I think I forgot where he was stationed, because he met, where the fuck did he meet? I think he met Lisa Marie Presley. That's his daughter.
Yeah. Priscilla's the mom.
Priscilla Presley in Japan.
I think so.
No, Germany. No, he met her in
international.
What's that?
I knew they had met internationally.
Yeah, it was Germany. They met in Germany, which, mind you guys, Elvis Presley not too far for R. Kelly, because that bitch was fucking 14 years old.
I was wondering that. I'm like, she's supposed to be really young right now, right?
Yeah, she was 14. Yeah, there's no place in time frame where that's okay. She was 14 years old. Let's take it off the table. Let's not act like Elvis wasn't a creep. because like that's not cool. But everyone looks over that shit. Mind you, R. Kelly just got 30 years today.
That's on top of the Chicago time he's serving, right?
I don't know. I think that it's 30 at 30 years, 30 years, bro.
He ain't getting out.
Yeah. Yeah.
You better step into the name of, step to the name. I can't finish the joke.
Oh God.
Step to the name of acceptance. You're alive.
Said I know I'm not getting out of county tonight. Oh shit. Oh God.
We gotta stop kicking these people while they're down, man.
Listen, man. Listen. Brandon, you know, and a lot of people know that like I was a huge R. Kelly fan. R. Kelly is like one of my favorite artists.
Yeah.
And listen, the nigga was fucking doing some wild shit. He was doing wild shit. He was fucking with young girls. That's what's gonna happen to you. Like, do I think that R. Kelly is probably one of the greatest artists that fucking ever did it? Yes, he is. But he's also not a very good person. So even though I respect his art, I will not respect the man, and I will shit on him for being a piece of shit. It's shine time, R. Kelly. It's shine time. And you're going to be shining in prison for the next 30 years.
Yeah, because it sucks because he's an R&B singer, so it's not like he doesn't do a visually stunning show, you know what I mean?
Actually, he does. He used to do a really good show. I saw him in concert. He's actually really good.
He dances?
Huh? Yeah. No, I mean, well, they have a whole set and everything like that, but he actually puts on a really good show. But like, this is the thing. Because so when I went to go see New Edition, Charlie Wilson was there. So he opened up for New. It was Jodeci, Charlie Wilson, and New Edition. And so a lot of people don't know Charlie Wilson got addicted to drugs. He was literally homeless for a while. He met this woman who kind of helped him get off the streets and stuff like that, helped turn life around. He ended up marrying that woman. Like Charlie Wilson was out there fucking Charlie Wilson was out there.
I'm not surprised that nigga was homeless at one point in his life. You don't come with that kind of scattered without being not having a roof over your head one day.
You learned that shit by standing in front of a fucking a fucking can on fire for warmth. Roasting hot dogs over a fucking burning tire.
Over his hands like, Uncle Charlie.
Hey girl, how you doing? You got some hand warmers? But so Charlie Wilson was out there and like he was really put on a really good fucking show, bro. Like I was like he was dancing, he was doing his thing. And I remember I was watching, I was just like, I wonder if when R. Kelly gets out of prison, you know, when however many years he's going to, obviously a long time before the verdict. I was like, I wonder if he does have some sort of comeback, if he's gonna be able to come back and like kind of his ego is gone where he can try to rebuild his image to do like what Charlie Wilson's doing. But he's never gonna have that opportunity. Charlie Wilson's doing his shit and he's 70 some odd, he's 70 like 4 years old, some shit like that. R. Kelly ain't getting out of jail until he's gonna be like fucking 80.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Man, you better, motherfuckers, like if you want new R. Kelly shit, you better keep on playing fucking the Chocolate Factory album. It's over.
What if I told the R. Kelly, like when he gets out of jail story?
What's that?
What if I make like a movie about a character that's based on R. Kelly who gets out when he's 80? And what does that look like for someone like R. Kelly in like a 2053 world?
No, you don't even do it that far. You do somebody getting out of prison now. He's been in prison since, like the 80s.
Okay.
Yeah, you make it
I'm getting on now. Then.
yeah. And in this whole new world and trying to restart. Actually, that's a pretty fucking decent movie. I'd watch it. I'm here for it.
So I have this idea for a song. It's gonna be 12 parts.
Yeah, but it has to be like one of those like old school like flamboyant fucking singer. And I don't mean flamboyant as in in a homosexual thing. It's just like one of those like those big personality artists from back in the day, and now he's in this world and he's trying to make it work. He wants to do his comeback. He's been in prison for, and what has he been in prison for? I think it should be something fucking kind of heinous.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like he's really just like, hey, I spent my time, and like this is the only thing I've ever known. Music is only. I think that's a really good fucking story.
It's like Get On Up meets The Woodsman. That's the Kevin Bacon movie where he's a pedophile and he did his time and he's trying to get people to accept him in his community. Most stuff is in it. It's pretty good. So Baz Luhrmann had an $80 million budget. I actually thought that was under what I expected. Because visually, like I was like, oh, this is at least this is keeping my attention. But even though this movie is 2.5 hours, actually longer than that.
Yeah.
And AMC, if you listen, motherfuckers, if anyone from AMC listens to this and they work there or you own any kind of stock or you are the owner of AMC, motherfuckers, stop putting 25 plus minutes of commercials and trailers before a 2-hour and 40-minute movie. That's just obnoxious.
Yeah. I don't need 3 hours.
So disrespectful. Especially if you know the movie's not an A+. Don't do that. Get me in and out as soon as possible.
You're right.
I'm just saying. I was actually talking to one of my film critic friends about Austin Butler because they were essentially like, yeah, this will probably get like a few nominations down, like, down the line, like technical, like editing and like production design, stuff like that. And they're like, and Austin Butler will probably get nominated as best actor. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I think he's good, but I think the movie did a disservice to the performance he gave as Elvis. Because I think he carried the scenes well. It's just because it was so non-linear and fucking all over the place, you didn't have like an opportunity
anything to grab onto
and really invest in him, right? Like,
yeah.
There's parts where obviously like he's heartbroken and you get why, because he has the issues with his dad being in prison and being ashamed.
His mom died.
His mom having being an alcoholic and dying and stuff. Like, there's all these things where I'm like, he's doing a good job portraying that in Elvis, the way this characterization of Elvis, but the movie is so choppy and loses its focus so often that it loses that. So I'm like, I don't know. Because I mean, if for me, the best male performance this year thus far is Adam Sandler in Hustle.
Yep.
And that's a memorable role. I think this could get lost in the sauce very quickly if other actors have better perform, like, bigger movies or something like that.
But at the same time, Brandon, this movie made a whole bunch of money because you had a bunch of fucking old white people who's like, oh, Elvis, I remember that guy. So they ran out to go see this movie. This movie is up there with Top Gun, Maverick.
Oh yeah, it did tie in the opening box office.
Yeah.
For it. Yeah, I mean, it's going to make money. And also, I think Austin Butler, he's doing this thing, being a young guy, because apparently he was like a Disney kid. He was like on Disney and Nickelodeon and stuff like that. And because in my theater, when I went to go see this, you're right, it's old white people, and then it was young white girls.
Yeah.
Because they were like, this guy's hot. And then so you're watching and then I heard some of the girls whispering next to me when they showed, and I thought I did think it was a beautiful ending with the Unchained Melody. like interspersing between Austin Butler singing it and then the real Elvis. And then the girls next to me were like, they saw the real Elvis, were like, ew. Jeez. But then they saw younger photos because they showed younger photos of them and they were like, oh. And I was like, that's so interesting to see, the opposite reaction, because we often talk about how men, we criticize women, how they age and stuff. It was just interesting to see it the other way around, where they're like, ew, that guy looks gross. And they show him younger, like, oh, what happened? It's like this movie just tried to tell you what happened, but it just failed.
But you weren't listening.
It also failed in like telling it in a coherent way.
Yeah.
I mean, fucking Baz Luhrmann did The Great Gatsby, and even that confused me in some parts when that's a straightforward fucking story.
Yeah.
Like, that shouldn't happen. You're adapting from a book that tells the story. But he did that with Romeo and Juliet. Moulin Rouge, I could never fuck with.
Yeah, I don't. You can't pay me to figure out what happened in that movie.
Did you like Romeo and Juliet though?
I mean, it was cool, but it's also kind of all over the place.
It's I liked it visually. I thought it was a really cool style, especially at that time. It was really gritty, and then I love that little black kid they had singing throughout the movie. He did like When Doves Cry and shit.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's a beautiful scene. But yeah, like I didn't see Australia. That's the Hugh Jackman, Nicole Kidman movie he directed. So he's been
nope.
Nope. It's just like,
yeah, this kid was on Hannah Montana, iCarly. He was in all the bullshit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was actually talking to the writers group the other day about this. I'm like, Quentin Tarantino has a good eye for talent because he peeps all these people right before they blow up or right before they're about to like finally get the heat that they deserve. And it started with like, I mean, it kind of started with Reservoir Dogs with like Steve Buscemi and shit.
Yeah.
Austin Butler, a lot of people forget that he was in that
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Yeah. He's going to be in Dune Part 2.
Oh shit. Yeah. Oh yeah. He's going to be like the main bad guy, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I love Denis Villeneuve, but I couldn't. Maybe with the sequels, I'll be able to like appreciate it more. I just couldn't get into it. But
yeah, I don't know, man.
But what were your thoughts on Tom Hanks's performance?
I felt like if they were gonna go and do Tom, it's hard. It's hard to really say because the movie is so all over the place. It's like they should have showed how fucking creepy and predatory he was. And a lot of these like biography was that
like all those girls kissing him at shows, like how young they actually were and stuff like that.
Wait, what are you talking about?
That
Elvis?
Yeah.
No. I'm talking about Tom Hanks, his performance.
Okay.
It's because like all of these biography movies, the villain is obviously somebody on the inside, right? And I think a lot of these biography movies, they play it up. They show you over time. It's like, oh, this person ain't shit, and they haven't been shit for a long time, but nobody's just paying attention, right? Or like there's a shift in there. Yeah. We never got a shift in here because it kind of was like, oh yeah, he was kind of shady from the beginning, but it's jumping around with all this other shit, and you never really get the focus down on the fact that that the Colonel Tom Parker was being a piece of crap all this time, right? So it's like it's really hard to say that someone gave a great performance. Same thing with Austin Butler here, because it's just like it's almost just like who cares, because like we didn't really see that much of you, or we didn't get enough linear performances in here so we could really tell how you really brought out the emotion in that scene. And I think it's the same thing with Tom Hanks' performance.
Okay. I think that they completely dropped the ball. I don't know. at the end of the day, I don't know who this is for. I imagine if you're a hardcore Elvis fan, you might just appreciate the different set pieces and replicas, performances and stuff like that. But if you're a new person to Elvis, again, you wouldn't really. It'd be like, okay, who cares? You know what I mean? Like, or it'd be, for Black people, it's also like, well, they didn't address the shit that I was hoping they would address finally about his legacy. So fuck this movie. Like, you know what I mean? It just feels like this isn't for anybody, and therefore the 4 screenwriters, including Baz Luhrmann, like, there was no focus.
But you know what? At the same time, they were dealing with fucking Elvis's estate. They didn't want to.
That's always a problem. That's always,
yes.
You're always gonna get some skewed shit. I mean, that happens in most biopics. So
yeah, but I mean, like they said, oh, it was the most perfect, outstanding thing. That's what his daughter and his wife said. It was amazing, whatever, because it was a huge fucking fluff piece.
Mm.
Ray wasn't a fluff piece because they showed like, oh, this nigga had a drug problem. This nigga had, these issues and things like that. That's why Jamie Foxx won an Oscar for that.
Yep.
This, I mean, it was just like, it glossed over the fact, like, oh, Elvis had a problem with pills. Elvis was fucking other chicks on the side. Elvis was just mouth kissing random women at his concert, which is crazy. like, bro,
I mean, that's
AIDS, my nigga.
Well, I mean, especially when they were filming this shit during COVID, that Austin's like, every kiss, I'll risk my life.
Every kiss begins with AIDS.
I always hate that commercial.
Was that?
I always hated K jewelries.
Yeah. Every kiss begins with K.
Who thought of that jingle? It's so simple, but also so like, I'd be like, really, nigga? That's what you came up with?
It's like, get it? K Jewelers. K, the word kiss. I mean, it's perfect. Right, guys? And somebody was just like, I like it. Like, that's what you're gonna hang your hat on? Your entire company? Every kiss begins with K? Like, come on, nigga.
I mean, it worked. That's the thing, it worked.
Oh, man. God. I mean, yeah, here we are fucking doing their jingle. Fucking, I'll even use that for forever. But, bro, we need to talk about the fact is, this is the first time you're going to hear me say this. And I'm hoping it's the last time. But I was disappointed in this movie that I saw Kelvin Harrison Jr. pop on the screen.
I knew he was in it, and when he popped in, I was like, I don't like what they're doing with him. I don't like what they're doing with BB King. I don't like what they're doing with it. They're making him do. They're making it like, it almost felt like trolling. It's like, hey, like, Elvis had so much Black influence and embraced Black culture so much. He had one Black friend. It was just keep showing you that same Black friend.
And guess who he's a? You may know him, BB King.
And it was really some nigga named Charles. Just like, we can't talk about Charles. Nobody know who Charles is. Put BB King in it.
Get BB King. He's dead. He can't say anything about this.
What about James Brown? Oh, no. People just assume they were doing cocaine all the time.
Well, didn't James Brown like know Elvis though?
Probably.
Something tells me I remember some story about James Brown and Elvis Presley, but I mean, who knows? And then then they start. Okay, actually, I'm gonna say, what the worst scenes were in this movie? When it glosses over his movie career and he's sitting there on the boat.
Oh, yeah.
That was terrible. And then they were glossing over Dr. King getting killed and
he did
Kennedy.
bad movies, right?
Well, I mean, you can, if you consider those movies.
But yeah, I mean, it glossed over Dr. King. It glossed over that one artist that like greatly influenced him, where she wanted him to I imagine that was real. She wanted him to perform at that concert. He was like, "Oh, I can't." The colonel says I can't, and then she died, and he all was regretful and shit.
Yeah.
I was just like,
So he had.
which
Sorry.
kind of movies?
Yeah.
I'm trying to get them numbers down. Yo, old nigga. He's like 4 + 2 = 6 equals.
He had about 33 movies.
Okay.
But at the same time, I believe a lot of these movies were like little shorts. I mean, they weren't out. Oh no, 89 minutes.
Yeah, they're not shorts, bro.
No, because like they did movies which were basically musicals, but they weren't like full blown movies and shit like that. Like so, like that was a thing back then. It was almost like vignette things, but I don't. Maybe he didn't do a bunch of those. I thought he did thought he did a few of those, but maybe not.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I think this movie could have benefited from just focusing on maybe a specific time period in Elvis's career. Like for me personally, because I'm a fan of like movies like Casino and stuff like that, you could just give me his last like few years at that hotel. And then you give me like flashbacks or perspective about what led to him there. That's the story to me.
Yeah.
Because you can talk about most of the things you touched on in the movie by just focusing on that point of his life. Especially, you're going to show him passing out and having to get his head stuffed into glasses of water and shit. Like, just go all balls to the wall with it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you push his head in the water and then you fucking fly. That's the opportunity to flash back. And you can flash back for 20 fucking minutes.
Yep.
Like that's a more riveting story. That's actually that's the much better way to do it. I mean, bro, like they had so many with that, they had opportunities to touch on so many things from his life.
Yeah.
Is like because that like again, he's not interesting. He wasn't interesting. I mean, because when it really basically this movie is just like they basically fucking fucking because of him gyrating on stage, stuff like that, they ruined his career. They basically put him in the box.
Yeah.
They shipped him over to fucking Germany for a minute. So he basically gave up about like a good 10 years of his career where he was basically a shell of himself, right? Yep. It's like there's nothing to tell in that moment, in that portion. That was the stupid fucking jet ski fucking scene shit. So if that's the case, it's just like then show us the most interesting points.
Yes.
You know, it's like, oh, this is how I became to be Elvis, and this is how I fucking this is how my career ended those last few years. Should have been the last few years and flash back to the beginning. Yeah. And then you have some things that fill in the gaps in between. But also, them like, oh, Elvis, he cared about Dr. King getting killed. It's like, but Robert Kennedy, when Robert Kennedy got killed, that's when he had to stand up and say something. Like, okay, but he didn't stand up and say anything about Dr. King. He was just like, not Bobby.
Yeah, he's just like, this has everything to do with us. Oh. Also, like that accent, man, I could sometimes understand what he was saying.
Yeah.
I was like, I need subtitles for this nigga.
Yeah. Yeah, man. It wasn't fun. It wasn't fun.
Yeah. We did get some Patriot thoughts on Elvis. And remember, folks, if you sign up for Patreon, you are guaranteed to have your thoughts and mini reviews of upcoming episodes or movie topics read on the show. So first up is Sean C.
Actually, hold on. Before we get to that, is it just me, or did was this Elvis came across as a little At some points I was just like, was Elvis a little closeted?
It seemed like he might have got just fucking with a lot of people.
You know what I'm saying? Because you know that there's a rumor that Elvis was having a relationship with a man. And
I
there's like some sort of eyewitness account saying that like Elvis, when he first got to L.A., he was a big fan of James Dean, and after James Dean died, there was this dude who was basically like James Dean's boy, who then became obsessed with Elvis, and like he was showing him around L.A. and he was fucking him,
mm,
and they were fucking. So like, I mean, so
he was fucking.
like
They were fucking.
they were fucking. So that I kind of, but like some aspects of the film, it kind of it almost led me to just like, is like, were they kind of, like kind of just kind of sprinkling that in there a little bit, but it wasn't like outwardly said.
Yeah, probably.
But like I'm saying, like, did you get that from the film, or is it just me?
I mean, there's some parts where I was like, like I remember being like, like with a specific shot with him, like looking at men or vice versa. And then, but I was just like, whatever. But then, yeah, I mean, it's possible, especially that's
Yeah.
always been a rumor.
Yeah. I mean, well, but I didn't even know that was a rumor until I watched this movie. I was just like, huh. And then I started doing a little research, like, oh, okay, so there was a thing where people thought that he was in a relationship with this guy. Like, okay, whatever. Which, who cares? But at the same time, it's just like, I don't know. I just felt like it was kind of like, it was like an undercurrent of this film of just, it's like, Elvis may have been a little gay.
You might have been sucking on some pinkies, if you know what I mean. All right. So patient Sean C said, now why would we happen to see this? A crying emoji. Darren Patterson says Elvis was a hero to most, but he never meant shit to me, you see. Straight up racist that sucker was. Simple and plain. Motherfuck him and John Wayne. Yep, it took me a minute to realize that that's actually supposed to be a rhyme. So apologies about that. Next is from L. The movie was long but entertaining enough for me not to care too much. But seriously, I felt like I was in the theater half the day by the time we left. Performances by Tom Hanks and Austin Butler were great. No surprise there. What was the surprise is how this film covered how influential gospel and blues music were on Elvis in the entire first half. B.B. King and Elvis were depicted as close friends in the film. Kirsten Harrison Jr. as B.B. King was a standout, and I loved how Alton Mason played Little Richard. Side note, I know Alton as a model in the fashion scene. It took 3 months into his portrayal for me to recognize who he was. Oh, interesting. 3 months into his portrayal. Also, shout out to Yola, who played Big Mama Thornton. Needless to say, my favorite scenes were the ones which showed Elvis's time on Beale Street. The problems I have with the movie, they grace over his drug use. Exactly. It wasn't just a couple of pills here and there like the movie shows. Elvis was a full-blown addict. I guess this was the producer's way of keeping this PG-13. Another problem, we all knew good and well that Priscilla was a teenager when her and Elvis started messing around. The movie depicts her as in similar age and only casually mentions the age difference in the last 10 minutes of the movie. All right. Fair enough. Well, and then Gina wrote, "Oh no, thank you." Oh no, thank you. He was never anything special to me. Just another example of whitewash black music and thievery. Plus, wasn't his wife underage? He and Jerry Lee Lewis need to fade away. No thanks. So those are our Patriot thoughts.
Okay.
Good thing.
So
I will say, good thing Ansel Elgort didn't get this role because that would have been real problematic for marketing. Imagine like you being accused of grooming a young woman and then you played Elvis. Like, look at the bit of the nose, right?
All right. So I think we also need to talk about Elvis's image within the Black community. So there, for one, there's really no way that we can say that this is true or it's untrue. But like this is something that I heard from my parents, and I've heard many times from Black people who said, the line of Elvis saying, "The only thing Negroes can do for me is buy my records and shine my shoes." So but then it was said that Elvis said, "Oh, I never said that." I never said that. Then people in his camp is just like, no, Elvis didn't say no shit like that. And that was like supposedly in the mid 50s. So this was early in his career. Now, mind you, at the same time, Elvis' career started in 1953. Also, obviously, we know what that time was for black people. And on top of that, Elvis broke segregation laws in the South to go watch black performers, right? Which, he then stole their act and then created.
Yeah, he did it because he knew the risk, because he was like, I'm gonna make millions off this shit.
Exactly. But he was also demonized because he was performing in the sexual nature that black performers were performing on their stages and things like that. He brought that to white audiences, which was deemed a no-no. So now all I'm going to say is this: I don't know if necessarily Elvis was a racist, for sure. But I could see somebody, because for the sake of his career, somebody bringing up, you have a Negro narrative, you're such and such. Being a friend to the black community was not an okay thing in fucking mid 1957. I could see him saying some shit like that just to win, just for clout within the white community. Especially you're a performer that your rise came from the South.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that he is or he's not, but I could see that possibly being, because we've seen people do, no, not necessarily a thing for a race necessarily, but just like even, the LGBTQ community, like people have fucking, distanced themselves from it just because of their quote unquote fan base. So like I could see that possibly being the case, or somebody could just been saying that, about him. But that's something that really hurt his legacy with the African American community, especially because when he first came out, the black community was just like, oh shit, he's bringing to light some of this shit that we do. They didn't realize that, like, yeah, but the shit that he does, that's not his own shit. That's literally our music repackaged. Because I don't think at that point people didn't realize what the music industry was doing with the cover artists. But like I think it's just an interesting it's an interesting statement. And it's also with the time it came out. And it's like, but you can just see, like, I could see how that can be misconstrued one way or another. But like the overall sentiment within the black community now, and within the people from the 60s and above, that Elvis wasn't for us. I don't know. I don't know anything on that. It's just something. I mean, it's just, because again, I was raised by people who, like, this was their era of music, because my dad was, well, I guess he would have been, let's see how old Elvis, when Elvis was born. My dad was basically 2 years younger than Elvis. So he saw everything about Elvis as he rose to fame and whatnot. And then, like, yeah, and my mom being 12, I guess 14 years younger than Elvis, she was kind of the target market, for Elvis. So it's just like I have two kind of fucking ranges as far as just like what he was seen as, from the male perspective, also from the female perspective. And my dad's from the South, so it's just interesting. Like, do you remember like your mom's like kind of take on Elvis Presley?
No, like my family didn't really talk about Elvis.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why, like, I've always like, because I grew up in the suburbs around a lot of white people, they're always like, oh, Elvis is great, but I never really dug his music. The only song I ever liked was Burning Love, but that's because of Lilo and Stitch, because they played that song throughout the movie, and I'm like, oh, I like this song. So I never really cared about Elvis. That's why, like, going into this movie, I'm the kind of person that Baz Luhrmann should have been targeting and be like, let me tell you about Elvis and address some of the gross shit he did. And it gave me barely any information. I'm like, I don't know who the fuck I'm supposed to really learn about. Is it the Colonel, this crazy nigga that's got a Tommy Wiseau-ish background, or is it Elvis? Like, who the fuck am I supposed to be paying attention to?
Yep.
Justin, break down our rating system, man. Oh, sugar.
So guys, we rate movies bags of popcorn, small, medium, large, and the XL for the exceptional. If a movie doesn't deserve any popcorn, we throw it into the dog shit pile. We pile piles and piles of dog shit on top of it. So Brandon, we sat down and we watched the 2022 film Elvis, starring Austin Butler and Tom Hanks. Everybody else is kind of insignificant because they don't really have enough screen time to really make any fucking sort of a scratch in this film.
Yeah, even the actress that played Priscilla barely was in this.
Yeah. What say you, sir?
Yeah, so Elvis died when he was 42.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna give this 42 piles of dog shit. I don't see was that mean? Was that mean to do?
No.
I just didn't see the point. Like, at the end of the day, like, if you're gonna make a movie this long and invest that much in visuals, make sure that the story is coherent and make sure that people that don't know about Elvis will know something about Elvis. This felt so like subjective. That
felt like a fluff piece.
Exactly. It felt like I don't know what's actually accurate from what you're telling me about this dude. I don't know any of this is accurate. It didn't get that buy-in from me that biopics kind of need you to have. Be like, believe that this is someone's real story, right? Whereas this, I'm like, it seems so fantastical the way that they did it. Where I'm like, okay, well, you didn't make a fan out of me, and I knew you were gonna still be pissed by this because I'm like, it didn't address all the shit you said it needed to, if it was going to, win some genuine remarks from you, like in a positive light. And so I'm like, I don't know what they were trying to accomplish with this. Justin?
Yeah. I think for a film that's been in development since 2014, they really dropped the ball. Like they really honestly really dropped the ball. And especially for, a figure that is so polarizing, especially with communities, and especially how the music business was back then, which is widely well, I guess in some areas people know that, some don't. They, like, I've talked to people about cover artists, it was like, what are you talking about? So like, that's not, I guess it's not as widely known as I know it to be.
Yeah.
But like, I would have thought that they would have addressed more of like his roots and where he comes from in that sound and things like that. They brushed over that shit, which for me almost kind of is like almost like an admission of guilt.
Well, they brushed over that, and then they didn't even go into like how his business worked. They kept talking about Elvis Presley Enterprises and shit, and then I'm like, how? Okay, so then he at one point hired these two young guys to help try to reshape his career, but then the Colonel doesn't know what they're doing. I'm like, well, you're paying all these niggas, like, make sure they're on the same page, or you gotta fire somebody.
Yeah.
Like, why wasn't he doing that? And so they just didn't give me enough information to like understand anything that was going on. It was very frustrating as a viewer.
Yeah, I mean, with that said, I'm gonna give this 159 piles of dog shit for every minute that I had to sit through this film. I felt that it was paced. The pacing was all over the place. Like you said, I didn't feel like I really learned anything new about him, other than the fact is that his management really fucked him over. Other than that, it's just like, that's the really only takeaway. Is like, I feel like this film was, yes, like I said to you earlier, it was a fluff piece, but also it made this just like, look how they did Elvis. Look how they did our great.
Look at poor Elvis.
Yeah, they but we didn't address the fact that he married a fucking 14-year-old woman or girl. Sorry, just not wasn't a woman at the time when he married her. And he's kind of the the biggest fucking cover artist that there ever was. Is like he's the reason why they kept this shit up, well into the 60s and 70s. Yeah. So like, that being said, it's just like fuck this movie. There you go.
This movie. There you go. Clap your hands, stomp your feet. Just how can people follow you?
Guys, you can follow me at JBrownDid on Twitter and Instagram. Brandon?
Y'all can follow me at American Cons, AmericanCons.com. You can follow the show at Medium P Podcast on all social media platforms. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube page so you get alerted about future reviews and interviews. You can also go to the backlog. Justin, if people want to support the show financially, what can they do?
Guys, Patreon is where it's at. You got to get on Patreon. We got $2, $5, $10, $15 packages. The Ramp, What Am I Watching? The Zoom party nights. We also got our entire backlog that goes on the Patreon. And that is not even mentioning all of the bonus episodes you get every single month. Guys, the Patreon is the place to be. And if Patreon isn't enough for you, you're just like, how else can I support the show? We also got tpublic.com/mediumpopcorn. Grab yourself a little swag, and you can also leave us a phone message at 347-508-0978. And be sure, please, please, please leave us some 5-star reviews, because that helps the podcast and it helps us grow what we're doing right here.
Yes, helps it grow. Everybody, come on, get with the show. All right, thanks everybody for listening. We appreciate y'all. And your kisses bring me higher. I don't know the rest of the words. So
I don't even know what song that was.
It was supposed to be Burning Love.
I don't even know the song.
All right. Well, Sugar Mama and Sugar Plums, talk to you soon.
Peace.